What exactly are you afraid of? What's holding you back? As the giant rock you inhabit spins through the universe, a speck in a galaxy of stars, it's easy to look out and see the vastness of the world around you and forget entirely about the strength that you possess. Forget entirely that the mind's capacity is as infinite as those same stars that surround you. I don't think it's that we definitively choose to sell ourselves short. I think we simply lose sight of the fact that we have a say in the matter to begin with. Our fears keep us wishing. Our insecurities keep us hoping. We stay standing still when we should be moving forward. But truth be told, our pain comes from not doing, but wishing that we did. It's no coincidence that the more we fail, the more we realize life is a game that expands as we push. The power of making mistakes isn't the mistake itself, it's that when we get back up and brush ourselves off, our cognitive mapping of the world changes. We see that we can step out a little further. Our very definition of what's possible expands, and I believe that's what courage is. The willingness to step into that chaos of life, knowing that each time you find the strength to push forward, you are restructuring your reality. The resources are there, the tools are there, the opportunity is there. How crazy is the fact that we just need to convince ourselves that more is worth it? That the difficulty of short-term vulnerability isn't an enemy. It's the very ticket required for admission to the show. And so I ask again, what are you afraid of? Falling? Because you will rise, and you will rise stronger than you ever were. Is it criticism? Because one, people are so focused on their own endeavors that they look up way less than we think they do. And two, other than the small group you surround yourself with, why would you care? Is it pride? Because building things of significance requires starting on the ground floor, and there's no shame but honor in breaking down to build up. And when I look at my life in terms of chapters, right? Childhood, high school, college, 20s, 30s, the things that were my biggest concerns during each chapter are now laughable. And maybe, just maybe, if I saw that, I could have lived a little freer, been a little bolder. What if we were to get ahead of that learning curve? What if we understood that life is beautiful and flexible and exciting? And what if we understood that now? Instead of looking at this chapter 15 years down the road and chuckling to ourselves for not having the courage to have made the leap, taken the chance to have moved out into an unknown. We cannot physically see that which doesn't exist, which is why it's so important that we know we are the architects, that the fear pulsing through our veins is indicating that we are building, that we are choosing to step into a world that will give more if we find the courage to ask. So as this giant rock you inhabit spins through the universe, a speck in a galaxy of stars, perhaps each little light up there exists not to remind you how small you are, but to remind you that those same elements exist within you. To show you that the fire of a million suns sits in your soul, beats in your chest, waits for your signal now. So what are you afraid of? I once heard a metaphor that our existence is like standing behind a curtain with tears or holes, and reality becomes which holes we decide to look through when we're peering out at the world on the other side. What do we want to see? And this message, well, it's for whoever out there feels like giving up or folding their hand. Whoever's been waiting for things to change but only sees the clock moving forward, this is a reminder that the very thing you need is on the other side of that curtain. And you don't need to change who you are. You just need to position yourself to see it. Because it's there and you're ready. When life hurts, we might have every reason to be in pain, to feel lost or confused, but I always find it to be a beautiful reminder that we also have every reason to seek out from that pain something we've never been before. Why is it that our greatest accomplishments come when our backs are to the wall? Our greatest acquisitions after losing something dear to us? Why is it that we find ourselves and our way only after being lost? I've never heard someone say, "Thank God I never changed or left or tried something new." No, it's thank God the adversity forced upon me the courage to evolve into something more. Pain is to our potential what water is to a seed. It's the beginning of everything, unshackling, opening the gate, and making us realize we were sitting on the answers. That adversity doesn't stop you, it makes you stronger. That the down times lift you up. That when you lose yourself, you find a part of you that can now become the bridge to your future. See, I understand that things are difficult and challenging. I understand they're not easy, and I'm not asking you to pretend it's not happening or ignore it or close your eyes. I'm asking you to find, amidst all of this, that one thing that will get you to tomorrow. I'm asking you to find the courage to say, yes, this hurts. Yes, I'm stretched thinner than I've ever been, but I'm still going to find a way. I'm still going to make it happen. Because at the end of the day, you won't remember what hurt or what stood in your way, but you'll remember what you did about it. You'll remember how you arranged those pieces. How when your instincts said run, you stopped and built something you'll never forget. The little E on the car dashboard reminds me that I'm pointed east. As I sit at the red light, perpendicular to Ocean Ave, staring out at the water, this is it. This is as far as I can go. There are no more streets or towns or cities. There can't be any more stops along the way, just miles and miles of ocean. And it's interesting for me to think about all the changes I've made up to now, growing up outside of Los Angeles on the opposite coast, relocating again and again, sometimes very targeted, methodical moves, sometimes just for the sake of change, but always moving, always going. There's a saying that wherever you go, you take yourself with you, right? You can change the scenario, the circumstances, the surroundings, but ultimately, you can never outrun yourself. You are accompanying you on whatever journey awaits. And it's often not until you run out of real estate, until there's no more road or options, that you're forced to look in the mirror and acknowledge that it is you who must change. It's you who must evolve and become that person that you need you to become. And that can be a scary thing. After all, anyone can get in a car and head east. Anyone can point the compass away from the chaos of now. Move away from their demons. But how many of us can find the strength to look those demons in the eye? How many of us can make ourselves bigger than what attempts to weigh us down? All of us can, but how many of us do? Are we running to something or from something? Because there is a difference, and that difference is not small. One of my favorite speakers, Jim Rohn, when referencing our journeys through life, our push to make more of ourselves, he essentially said, it's not what you get at the other end. It's who you become along the way. And I think, like everyone, I've forgotten that from time to time over the years, forgotten that value is not simply in going, but in becoming, in the courageous little steps that accumulate over time. Forgotten that the external world might inspire or excite, that change might invigorate the soul, that the road untraveled might remind me of life's beauty, but these externalities are only as valuable as you allow them to be. They're only opportunities if you decide them to be so. Change inspires, but will you let it inspire you to do that thing you know you need to do, but are terrified of doing? And that road, it might remind you of life's beauty. But will you let that reminder be your invitation to share your own beauty with the world, whatever that means for you? Can you be that vulnerable? Can you take that leap in the story of your becoming? See, it is incredibly easy to look out at the world and pinpoint its flaws. All those little problems and imperfections, they tend to jump out at us. But can you identify what you, yourself, need? Can you be courageous enough to ask those questions of yourself? What matters to me? What does a meaningful life look like to me? Where am I falling short? That is a conversation that needs to be had. And it needs to be had often. Otherwise, we will drive and drive and drive until we hit water and are forced to ask that question. Because it's interesting that when we don't pause and make the changes that need to be made, life has a way of ensuring that we do. But when it's mandated by life, it tends to be a lot messier, a lot more chaotic. At least than when we make the decision ourselves. But either way, we cannot run forever. Either way, we must step into a new pair of shoes and learn to walk confidently with them into the night. There are plenty of little mantras floating around out there, little pieces of advice, and perhaps it's best for us to weigh them each individually, see what meets our needs and fits our criteria. After all, life is not one size fits all. But one of my favorite among these is to do one single thing that scares you every day, and I'll tell you why. Because when we become conditioned to turning our backs on all the uncomfortable things in life, we cripple our prospects of a better tomorrow. It's synonymous with the seed refusing water, saying no to the very thing it needs most. And what should be noted here, one of the reasons it's so dangerous, is that saying no is incredibly subtle. It's not some big event or explosion. There's no fireworks show that occurs every time you walk away from what you need. No, it goes unnoticed. And again, one of the greatest challenges is quantifying that which we don't do. How do you measure that thing you walked away from? Well, unfortunately, you can't. You can't, at least until you're staring out at the Atlantic with nowhere to run, no more escaping on the agenda. You don't know until you're forced to pick the pieces up and make something of them. And I say this so that hopefully it can ignite that spark in your soul that you need most, whether you previously recognized it or not. I say this to remind you how much bigger you are than your problems, how you have the ability to transform all that exists around you when you transform yourself. There's a certain inevitability associated with how we see ourselves. And I believe this to be true at both the personal and the societal levels. Anyone can look in the mirror and see the past, where they've gone wrong, how inadequate and ill-prepared they are. But the courage to look in the mirror and see strength, to both identify and understand one's shortcomings, but know that you have the power to do something about it. To know that the times you fell or didn't make the cut, they don't indicate that the endeavor was all for naught or unequivocally wrong. No, there is so much good tied into your pursuit. So much beauty and courage ingrained in your soul. But imagine a life where you no longer run from the gaps, but close them. Imagine finding it in yourself to begin that hero's journey. And where you used to run to protect yourself, now you take the offensive to grow yourself. Where you used to avoid the possibility of failure, now you chase the possibility of victory. You can have that if you want to. You can be that if you choose to. And sure, you may never be able to outrun yourself, but you can always adapt yourself to be that person you always needed you to be. Sometimes we just need the reminder that we are strong enough. We do have what it takes. And that the thing that hurts us most in the short term not only saves us pain in the long term, but it becomes what we live for. It is where we find our meaning. And so perhaps this ocean before me is not there to remind me of my constraints, that I have no road left, but a reminder of just how often we measure using the wrong metrics. Perhaps I needed to see again that it's not where I end up, but who I become along the way. That when the internal self steps into the shoes it's been too intimidated to wear, that when the world within becomes the beacon you need it to be, the roads and the stops along the way, they matter a little bit less than the eyes that process it all, that decide what it means, how it will be utilized in the game of life. And so, yes, the little E on the car dashboard, it says that I'm pointed east. But as I sit at this red light, perpendicular to Ocean Ave, staring out at the water, I know this is only the beginning. Sometimes we have to hear no 99 times before we can get to our yes. Sometimes we have to repeatedly fall before we can stand our ground. But here's the beauty in all that. It doesn't matter how many times you fall or how many no's you get. It only takes one yes for things to change, to turn around. You only need that one door to open for you. It's very easy to get caught up in the negative, the locked doors, and the rejections, but they are not the problem. They're part of the process. They're what we have to go through to get to our destination. And one of the greatest things you can do for yourself and your goals is to depersonalize these locked doors. They're not the world working against you. They are the world working for you, bringing you one step closer to the path that you need to take. Don't stop at door 1 or 2 or 50. Stop when you've gotten the answer you're seeking. What's going on, guys? So today I want to talk about 6 mental shifts that completely transform my life. As Thoreau would say, it's not what you look at, it's what you see. And I'm a firm believer that the way we analyze, interpret, perceive the world around us directly correlates to the lives we lead and what we're capable of doing. And I want to talk about some of the ways that I changed the way I looked at life and got results back that helped me pivot, that helped me grow, helped me become more as a person, as a creator, as an entrepreneur. And hopefully you can take that and use it in your own lives as well. The caveat being, I don't want this to be interpreted as magic, right? This isn't you think something and it happens. It's not at all the case. What I'm advocating is when you think about something differently, you tend to then act differently. And when you act differently, well, the results are different, right? So it all starts with how you look at a situation. And that's what I'm advocating. We can look at the world in a way that puts us in position to win. Number 1, and I'm sure this is no surprise to you guys, your external world is a product of your internal world. I grew up thinking that things just were the way they were. The parameters, the boundaries that I operated within, I never questioned. I never saw them as anything but what I thought they were supposed to be. And as I got older, I learned to take a step back and realize that things seem a certain way to me because I've allowed them to. I haven't questioned them. I haven't pushed back. It's not what happens, it's how you perceive what happens. Jim Rohn has a really cool story about 2 brothers that grow up, unfortunately in a very abusive family. They have an abusive dad. And they grow up and they have families of their own. And one is just as abusive to his kids. And he's asked about it and he says, yeah, of course I am. Like, how could I not be? Did you see what I went through as a child? And the other one is incredibly loving and caring with his kids. And when he's asked about it, he says, of course I am, right? You see what I went through as a child? I'm not putting anybody through that. And to me, I thought that was just a beautiful articulation of the choice we have in life. We can't decide what happens to us, but we can always decide what we do about it, how we perceive it. And that's why I make this number 1. It's kind of the gateway into a happier, healthier existence. Number 2 is that you are the captain of your ship. And this is important because a lot of people feel confined to their past, right? I like to say the wake of the boat does not drive the boat. Where you've been does not control where you go next. And sure, it's a part of you and it's important to have gotten you to this moment, but it's not the future. And you're always free to make a change or do something new or go somewhere you haven't done before. It's amazing the obligation we feel to be who we were yesterday, and there's just no reason for it, right? Edward Norton once said, when I was doing some YouTube surfing, I found a pretty cool clip where he's talking about the importance of the shoes an actor wears. They become the most important part of the costume, the character, because everything starts from the ground up. And I like to think every morning when we open the closet,
we have an opportunity to put on a new pair of shoes, to be a new character, to try something new, to jump into a world that we want to jump into. There's no reason to be fearful or hold ourselves back because of yesterday. Number 3 is joining the irrational few, as I like to call it. Being different, embracing your unique sense of self. As Robert Frost said, 2 roads diverged in a wood. I took the one least traveled by, and that made all the difference. And, I think that's the perfect metaphor for life. Everyone's going one way, and we innately want to go that way. But I think the most precious, powerful, life-changing decisions we make are when we do the exact opposite, when we find the parts of ourselves that are different, that are unique, that stand out. And instead of running from those, when we immerse ourselves in those things, man, we add value to ourselves and the world in a way that never would have happened if we didn't find that courage. And so that's what that shift has helped me understand, right? It's like the guitarist in his room practicing for 15 hours a day. He's an outcast, right? Cut off from society, doesn't get it, not doing X, Y, or Z. Then all of a sudden he writes this song that revolutionizes music, and he's a hero, and people want to be that and understand that and be a part of that. Well, why? Because he went through the trials and the tribulations associated with taking that path or road least traveled by. I'd advocate that for anyone. Explore, try things, test life. That's what it's there for. Number 4 is dance before the music plays, and this one's near and dear to my heart, right? Because you do the first 3. You understand the power of your world within. You become the captain of your ship. You join the irrational few, but it's like, now what, right? The real world is a tough place, and you realize that you're on this journey, and you have to will your results into existence. You have to dance before you hear the music, because here's the reality. And we all learn this at one point or another. No one walks up to you on the street and puts their arm around you and says, hey kid, that dream you have, keep going. That's gonna happen. I believe that. That's just not the reality. People only believe what they see, and they won't see it until you create it. Right? And so it's bridging that gap between your idea and the manifestation of that idea. You have to hear the song when no one else does. You have to believe it. And if you do that, it helps understand that there will be lows and there will be highs. That's part of life. But it doesn't mean it's over or you've gone the wrong route or the wrong path or the world's against you. No, it means this is life. And if you want something bad enough, this is what you have to endure, and you're willing to, because you hear that song, you're moving towards it, and you will show the world what's up when the time comes. Number 5 is what I refer to as staying awake while the world sleeps. And what do I mean by this? Well, it's the idea that the biggest things we can do, they're not the grand slams or grandiose displays of excellence. They're just not. They're consistent displays of discipline and courage and saying yes when most would say no. W. Clement Stone put it nicely when he says, big doors swing from little hinges. And so it's not looking at the little things as nuance or unimportant noise. No, the little things are everything. Separating your time. I remember Kobe talking about, a certain amount of hours he gets up and shoots every day when most people don't, over the course of a year, over the course of 10 years. I mean, it becomes so much in the aggregate that other players can't catch up. I mean, it's just too much of an advantage. And that's what it's about. I wrote my TEDx talk about something called running in the rain, which is about embracing that discomfort. It's like opening the door in the morning in Boston. It's freezing, sleety rain, and you could easily go inside and run later, or you can grab a beanie and a coat and run now. And it doesn't seem important at the time, but it's everything at the time, because when you learn to say yes to those little discomforts, it moves beyond that run. It goes into every aspect of your life, and it's like you see yourself as someone who embraces adversity, someone who capitalizes on those little advantages. And over years, man, they're not little. They become big. They become important. So, run in the rain. And number 6, see life as a game. It's just not as serious as we make it out to be. This is something, by the way, that's not easy to follow through with or understand. I tell myself this every single day of my life. But when I'm cognizant of this, I'm happier, and I'm more productive. I do believe wholeheartedly that this is the key to happiness, to impact, to everything worth having, is understanding that life is not a checklist. It's not a standardized test. It is a game. I was sitting down, this is a life-changing experience. I've written about it before on this channel, with some very successful, wealthy people at this table in Los Angeles that, most of them came from nothing. And I'm sitting there, soaking it all in as the YouTuber at the end of the table. And it's like the commonality between all of them was that it's like, what can I do? What can I make? Oh, I failed here. What did I learn? What can I do tomorrow? What would be fun? What does the world need? They're not operating from a place of fear. And again, these people weren't born millionaires. This mindset created the world that they have today. One of them was an immigrant from Iran, came here with nothing. It's like, you see the importance. One of my good friends, Zach, as a kid that walks around his living room and just pokes things, picks things up, sometimes breaks them, changes them, moves them around, uses them to make forts, tents, does all these things. But it's like, that is life. That's what life should be. We should be walking around exploring, testing, trying things, growing, not worried about protecting and maintaining the little universe we have, but giving everything to expanding that universe and just seeing what we can make. I'm convinced that's where the magic is, and that's why it's number 6. Life is a game. So hey, I hope this helps you see something maybe a little bit differently, and most importantly, act on that perception. Never forget, you're always one decision away from a totally different life, and that could start right now. Talk to you guys later.